Hello, I'm Bookface. It's been a while since I've done a speedrun video or any full-length video for that matter. I decided to start back up by redoing an older drawing of mine, which was actually the first of my speed drawings. So I start out by just trying out a bunch of random sketches and vague ideas, adjusting them however gradually or abruptly until I get to a point I actually kind of like. I kept trying to curve the jaw backwards in itself in the sketch, but ultimately I just couldn't figure it out in the final drawing. The price of ambition. The biggest issue I had with my original drawing is that it just seems way too normal considering my general goal when drawing is to make some kind of eldritch horror. But yeah, I drew a buff pigman with a golden mohawk. With the final sketch, I put more thought into it despite the fact that it's still just a rough sketch, just so I'd have an easier time visualizing it when I added color and, more defined shapes. This time, I wanted to make the pose more wild and the anatomy to be borderline nonsensical to reflect its more corrupted form. He just kind of lives down in caves and trudges through the darkness. For the tusks, I drew inspiration from the Babirusa, whose tusks grow into its own skull and kill it. Evolution went rather poorly for them. But also, unintentionally, I realized after the fact, the Chope papilloma virus, that's sometimes used to explain stories of the jackalope, creates this impracticality that I think goes well with these more horrifying or disturbing drawings. I found that the inherent empathy of people makes it so that when we look at something that looks like it's in pain or wouldn't work, it gives us like this sympathetic unease. I made it very fleshy, wrinkled, layered, and at some points it even just kind of looks like intestines, which was not intentional, but very happy accident. I wanted the proportions and limbs to be all bent and bloated, and the highlights are supposed to emphasize how stretched thin the skin is. Like, it's so stretched that it's like smooth because it's just being pulled so tight. The weird angles on the legs, in particular, at least for me, also serve the goal of making your mind kind of wander, like, how does this thing move? It's like this weird writhing and shifting of flesh, but it goes way faster than you might think. I really wish I could have applied a little more depth with the tusks in the inner parts of the mouth to make it look like, they were actually coming from the inner parts of the mouth. Probably would have been a matter of shading, and I'm really bad at lighting. For the eyes, I was kind of thinking of general trypophobia, as well as enlarged pores and weird fungal growths that make this weird, spotty design. It can control where it grows the gold and use those like weapons, but the tusks just kind of appear out of nowhere without any rhyme or reason. I tried to keep the same golden axe themes from before when I initially drew this, but I tried to make it look more organic and like actual gold deposits than any artificial tools. It's a problem I always have in monster designs. Ultimately, the gold may or may not have ended up looking like cheddar cheese, but I did my best, and it looks pretty accurate to the reference I got. So I did this thing with the hair where I scribbled a bunch of lighting, then added a tile pattern effect on it to make this interesting color variation I could then pull the hair from. I accidentally figured out this strategy when I was drawing the hodag, because initially I had it covered in scales, but then I realized it needed hair, so I just tried pulling the scales I'd made, and I'm like, that makes some pretty good texture. Turning the hooves into these weird, deformed chunks of obsidian was not intentional at all, but it was a very happy accident. It was also super easy because it was just finding a balance between, the fuzzy little glows and the harsh edges. I ended up putting a slight white outline around the hair since it unintentionally started blending into the background like a lot, and ultimately it's still pretty hard to see. So that's a downside with what I did. Maybe if I darken it more, I might change it in the final draft, depending on how much that bothers me. I also tried to mix in some things in the environment around its hand to make it look like it was just kind of clawing at the dirt, because one of my biggest struggles in these drawings is making it seem like the subject is actually a part of the environment rather than just being on a background. Ultimately, I think the drawing turned out pretty well and was definitely did a better job than the original drawing of, making what I was looking for. Big moral of the story is take your time, because frankly, I rushed some of my older drawings. This one took me a while, and that was good. screwed around with a bunch of stuff, and eventually I found something I kind of liked. If you like this drawing, check out my old speed drawing videos. Subscribe, leave a thumbs up, comment down below. Check out my website where I've got a bunch of information on spooky stuff from Myth and all over the place. If you think I deserve money for some reason, I have a Patreon, and I'll see you next time. Bye!